thank you guys so much for coming out tonight and learning some more about Superfoods Part 2. And with today's talk, it's going to be a little different. We talked about 5 superfoods last month, and there was just so much information. I really had to try hard to just summarize all the information the best I could. But with these 2 we're going to go over today, we're only going to go over 2, but it's going to be in very extensive detail because there's just too much information to shortchange you guys, and the information is too important. So that's what we're going to do today. And as a quick reminder from last week, we talked about my part 1 where we talked about my top 5. And in that top 5, you have the goji berry, which literally is the world's greatest anti-aging food. And that's because of its own natural ability to increase human growth hormone. And then you got cacao, which has the most antioxidants and the highest amount of magnesium over any other food in the world. So cacao is very awesome. Maca root, very good for libido and strength, and it's also an adaptogen, which helps your body's ability to adapt to stress. We all go through stress every day, so that's important. Bee products, which are going to help with strength, endurance, allergies, and then finally coconut. And that includes, coconut oil, coconut water. You're going to have the highest source of electrolytes in nature in coconuts, as well as the medium chain fatty acids. That's probably the most important thing that coconut has to offer. So what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk a lot about blue-green algae. And specifically, there's going to be 2 of them we're going to talk about. That's Chlorella and Spirulina. Now, for the first one I want to talk about, and that's Spirulina, both of these are single-celled algae, basically. And what it has, you're going to see this dark blue and green pigment of Spirulina, and what that is, the green is from chlorophyll, and the blue is from this compound called phycocyanin. And what's cool is that Chlorella and as well as Spirulina, they're the earliest forms of life. They're at the very bottom of the food chain, and they don't actually consume anything for energy. What they do is they just get all their energy through photosynthesis. So they convert the energy from the sunlight and they turn that into essential fatty acids, proteins, carbs, really any nutrient that's essential to nature. And Chlorella does all that, and Spirulina. And so when you're talking about the benefits of Spirulina, it's really in the high density of nutrients it has. And it has tons of chlorophyll, protein, vitamins, minerals, trace minerals, essential fatty acids, nucleic acids, antioxidants, all of this stuff. So what I want to do now is we're going to talk about the specific benefits and look into each one in detail. And the first one with Spirulina is got to be all about its protein content, because it's very unique in that it literally is about 65 to 71% protein. And if you contrast that to something like, what we think is the gold standard protein, like from animal products, that's only, 18 to 30% protein. So you're getting way more protein by weight from Spirulina than you are from animal products. But there's a lot more benefits that it comes with. I put a little side note here. In Mexico City, there's millions of people that just consumed Spirulina for their primary protein source, and they did that for 5,000 years. And they were thriving, so it absolutely is a very beneficial protein content. When you're contrasting the protein from Spirulina versus the protein from your commercial animals, we got to talk about CAFOs. And has anyone heard that term before? It's concentrated animal feeding lots or feeding operations. So it's all about commercial farming. And the problem with that is that they use a crap load of hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides. They get a ton of government subsidization, so it's all just completely sketched out, and they have a ton of genetic modification. So none of that sounds good, and when you use all that crap literally to make your meat, you're going to have this meat that's left over with tons of pathogenic E. coli and salmonella. So then what you're left up to do is you have to cook the heck out of your food to get rid of all that. Now here's the problem. The Max Planck Institute did a study, and they found out that when you cook meat, you're basically destroying 50% of the protein from the cooking process, okay? So if animals already have not very much protein compared to Spirulina, you basically burn half of it from the cooking process, you're left with a lot of good bioavailable protein for your system. Not to mention, not only is Spirulina more protein by weight, but it's also going to be 4 times more absorbable. So you're going to be way more bioavailable, a great protein source you can get, and it's an essential protein source, which means it has all 8 essential amino acids.
Wow.
And that's just the protein part. And the second one I want to talk about is purity, because right now our foods are so bombarded with, radiation, heavy metals, mercury, artificial chemicals, pesticides, etc. So that's why it's so important to buy supplements that are from foods that are low on the food chain. And that's another example is when they're talking about omega-3 supplements. They're now saying don't quite get them all from your salmon, your wild-caught salmon, but go for the more smaller fish like the krill, the anchovies, the sardines, because those are a lot lower on the food chain. You can see in this diagram here, there goes my cap here, but you can see from this diagram that the shark is obviously going to have a lot more toxic materials and toxic exposure because it consumes everything. Whereas the phytoplankton, which is where the algae are coming from, they only get all their nutrition from the sun, so they're going to have nothing. So they're going to be completely pure. It's a great pure source. So the bottom line is that the more lower you are on the food chain, the less toxins it's going to have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, for the third benefit, I want to talk about its blood building capabilities, because spirulina has as much iron as red meat. It's going to have chlorophyll, which is a very potent blood builder. And it's also that blue pigment we talked about at the very beginning, that it's phycocyanin. This pigment is awesome. It actually can stimulate the stem cells in your bone marrow to produce new red blood cells and white blood cells. And that's a process known as hematopoiesis. So that blue pigment in spirulina literally stimulates your body, making healthy new blood, both white blood cells and red blood cells. Now, the benefits it has on the immune system, because already if you're going to increase your blood cells, you're going to increase your immune system functioning. Now, with the immune system, what it's been shown, every study has shown that it increases tons of immune system cells. And those are all listed there. You're talking your antibodies, your cytokines, interleukins, interferons, stem cells, T fighter cells, macrophages, anti-cancer, natural killer cells. So what happens is you're building up all these immune system cells. Those begin to circulate the body, and then they ended up getting stored in certain organs like your tonsils, your adenoids, your appendix, your thymus gland, your liver. So what you're going to see here is from all that increased immune cells, you're basically going to be increasing the weapons at your disposal. You're going to be able to fight your own pathogens because you're going to have all those backed up immune cells ready to go when you need them. Because all of those organs, like your thymus, your appendix, they're going to be loaded up with those immune cells ready to use. So this raises a big problem, because what are the 2 body parts people like to take out the most in hospitals? Tonsils and your appendix. Yes. And so just a little side note, when I was a freshman in high school, 14 years old, I had massive abdominal pain, lower right quadrant. They had suspicions of what it was, but I went through like 3 different doctors, and finally, it's appendicitis. So I had inflammation of my appendix. We need to do an appendectomy immediately to remove it. And then the doctor kind of pats me on the back, and rest assured, it's just an organ of no clinical significance. It's just there. And I'm thinking, dude, if we had something that was in our body that wasn't meant to be there, we would just be born with zippers along our spines so we could take out all these unnecessary body parts. Because how do we have unnecessary body parts that serve no function? Makes no sense. They'll never happen. But now we know there's potent immune cells in those areas, in your tonsils and that. So they've actually done clinical studies showing that people that had appendectomies are going to have higher incidence of allergies. They're not going to be able to fight off their own infections. They're going to just be a lot more susceptible to sickness and disease. And so that's, unfortunately, I can't do anything about that now, but I can do things like consume spirulina to help me out. Now, what also does, it increases a substance called GLA, and it's gamma linoleic acid. And what that is an essential fatty acid, and spirulina actually has the second highest food source of this GLA component, second only to breast milk. And why it's so important is that GLA, it actually stimulates proper development and nutrition for your developing nervous system as you're aging, especially when you're young. So what that means is that, especially moms out there who aren't able to breastfeed, babies who can't breastfeed, it's absolutely essential they take spirulina to get this GLA so their nervous systems can actually function correctly and develop properly. Very, very important. Not to mention it's a potent anti-inflammatory. It can actually block the production of these inflammatory prostaglandins in the body. So it's anything like arthritis, people with arthritis, which is most of us, I guess, from our x-rays, right? So arthritis, any inflammatory condition, this is going to be essential for that because it's going to diminish the inflammatory response of the body. As well as your skin and hair health, it's going to show it's going to be more shiny, it's going to be more strong, healthy. Not to mention allergies. It also has been proven to actually reduce allergies by what it does is it actually lowers a substance called IgE, which is a marker for high allergy sensitivity. So it basically lowers the abnormal histamine response to those normal stressors that we get allergies from. So when you're going to the store and you're going to go buy some spirulina, you're going to see it in both tablet and you're going to see it in powder form. And they're both good, but if you choose to do the tablets, you know, I like to do the tablets too. It's convenient. I can stick them in my pocket, but you want to make sure there's no artificial tableting agents in there. You know, they can bind it up into the other, but sometimes they use this artificial like glue-like substance to form it into a tablet. You don't want that. So if it's tablets, which is all natural and it's just the pure source of spirulina, that's fantastic. Go with that. But no tableting agents. You're going to want, obviously, with anything certified organic. And unfortunately, when you're going to the supermarket, you can't smell the substance before you buy it. You know, you have to wait till you get home. But if it smells sour or rancid, it goes bad. So you wouldn't want to, you just want to throw that away by then. You want to look for more of like a fresh kind of plant smell. And you also want to keep these refrigerated right after you open them, because they will spoil. They're excellent to blend in smoothies. You can sprinkle them on juices and sprinkle them on salads. It's very easy to incorporate it in your diet. It does make your smoothies super dark green, so if you're scared about that or you're scared of like green teeth, it's going to happen. And for doses, for a therapeutic dose to get most of the benefits, you're going to want to look at 11 to 20 grams a day. The David Wolfe book I was reading on superfoods, he also added a, I don't even know what this means, but a super athlete dose. So if you're a super athlete, you can consume even more than 30 grams a day. But for our sakes here, I mean, I think that therapeutic dose where you're going to get most of the benefits is going to be just fine. Now, segueing, and it's actually not really segueing because they're both going to be single-celled blue-green algae. We're going to talk about chlorella. And chlorella, as you guess, it has the highest concentration of chlorophyll, which is how it got its name, than any other food. And chlorophyll is amazing. What you're going to find is that this chlorella, it's been scientifically proven to increase a ton of things. Your brain function, liver function, digestion, regeneration, your body's ability to detox heavy metals and alcohol. It's going to offer protection from radiation, which is very beneficial now with this Fukushima stuff going on. We're getting it all right here in the Pacific Ocean. It's going to fight inflammation. It's going to boost the immune system. Healing process, it's going to aid in weight loss. So again, like we did with the spirulina, let's look at the benefits specifically and go from there. And the probably most popular benefit that most people have heard of is its ability to detox the system. And what it does is it acts directly on the liver, and it can actually cleanse the alcohol out of the liver. So what that means is, I had to add this one in there, they actually done studies on its ability to prevent hangovers. So I'm not telling everyone to start drinking, you know, tonight, but what it does is the Japanese did a study and they showed that if you consume 4 to 6 grams of chlorella before a night's drinking, you have a 96% less chance of having a hangover. And they also added a little note in there that even includes heavy drinking. So just saying, it will help because it really acts on the liver to clear all that out, and it also eliminates the heavy metals in your body. And that's the PCBs, the heavy metals, especially there's been a lot of documentation on mercury, arsenic. And so when you're talking about things like our fillings, which have mercury, vaccines, our drinking water has a ton of heavy metals. Our food products have a ton of heavy metals. Even if they say organic, it can still have heavy metals, which makes chlorella absolutely vital. And not to mention that, it has a huge ability to absorb toxins in our intestines, and it can actually increase our healthy gut bacteria. So detoxing is huge for that. Now, for immune support, kind of like again with spirulina, you're going to have a lot of immune system properties, and that includes basically increasing the amount of white blood cells in the body. And so what they did is they did a study on people with chronic illness and people really sick from chemotherapy treatments. And they found out that their progress, their status, their health greatly got better. They got so much better, so much faster. Their clinical outcomes were so much higher when they consumed a chlorella supplement because of their ability to add more white blood cells. Obviously, the more white blood cells and the more immune system cells you have, the better likely you're going to be able to go through chemotherapy treatments, the better you're going to be able to fight through chronic illness. Because chronic illness is basically when your immune system is shot. So anything that's going to boost that immune system is going to be huge. And there's been a ton of studies on its ability to resist viral and bacterial infections. And for one thing, they did a study on mice, and they found out that the mice who took daily supplements of chlorella, I don't even know what a daily supplement of chlorella looks like for mouse. Yeah, but I didn't get the amount or anything, but what they did is over a period of time, they had 50% more superoxide levels in their body. Superoxide is what they use as defense to basically blast bacteria infections away. So the more weapons they have at their disposal, the more likely they're going to be able to basically fight their own pathogens themselves. And then regarding viruses specifically, it increases a substance called gamma interferon. And gamma interferon then stimulates natural killer cells, which is another immune system cell, to fight off your own viruses. So long story short, it's going to increase your body's ability to fight bacterial and viral infections. It's very similar to coconut oil. It's got the same properties as well. So this is a property that has literally baffled scientists throughout the world. And it's something called chlorella growth factor. Because what they found is when they're looking at chlorella, this chlorella is actually able to quadruple itself every 24 hours, which makes it the fastest growing food in the world. It can replicate, 4 times every 24 hours. And so nothing has ever had that fast of a growth rate. So and they're contributing to this chlorella growth factor it has. I think it's still kind of like a scientific anomaly, like what is going on here. But what they found is that if it's going to increase the rate of production, if you ingest it, it actually increases the healing, growth, and repair of their other tissues. So that chlorella-like growth factor is actually able to stimulate other parts of your body to heal and repair itself. And so they've noticed that with the healing of tissues, and they also noticed that when it acts on the gut specifically, that chlorella growth factor is actually able to multiply your beneficial gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria basically make up your entire immune system. So that's all going to increase the immunity of the body. And also this is very promising, and it's been used for a long time now with people with nerve damage or nerve degenerative disorders, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, because it literally helps rebuild that nerve tissue in there. Because that chlorella-like growth factor is going to help stimulate the production of more and more cells to help build up those nerves again. And for your digestion, chlorella's got the digestive enzymes, and there's actually an enzyme called chlorophyllase, which I'm assuming helps digest chlorophyll. But you also have pepsin, which is a protein, which helps digest proteins. And it's also, again, like we talked about, it's going to increase your healthy gut bacteria. And they actually did a study on a specific gut bacteria, and they looked at lactobacilli, and when you consumed chlorella, those lactobacilli, those beneficial gut bacteria that's absolutely vital for health, it increased the rate by 4 times, their growth rate. So you're basically multiplying by a factor of 4 all your good, healthy gut bacteria, and that is huge. And then when you're going at a store and you're looking at chlorella, it's going to be very similar to spirulina. You're going to find it in tablet form or powder form. Doesn't matter, just avoid those tableting agents. For a dose, a good maintenance dose is going to be about 3 grams per day.
How much is that?
3 grams per day. It depends on if it's the things, but it's about, I buy the tablets and I just keep them refrigerated, but it's about 20 of those little tablets, which equal about 2 big size pills. They're very small. Yeah. So it's not too much, but I take it kind of at different times during the day because I don't like to take all my things all at once, just to increase the absorption. But if you're specifically going to do chlorella for a heavy metal detox, which I would recommend all of you do, you'd want to do this for about 3 to 6 months daily and consume about 5 to 7 grams. Because it does take a while to rid yourself of heavy metals, but you'll never regret it. It's going to be one of the best things you can do. And especially with the new year coming up, it's kind of like the detoxing year. Let's get all the crap out and start getting healthy. So this would be a very good thing to implement. And also with that mercury and the heavy metal detoxification dose, you're also going to find the most benefits and with the energy, digestion, and overall health. So if you really want to see the benefits, take that larger dose. Otherwise, you're going to be fine with the maintenance dose.
And do they
Yeah.
have your dose for like 6 months, you said? Or
3 to 6 months on average, yeah. And then you got to make sure when you're buying it, it's got to be broken cell wall chlorella. And the reason is because chlorella naturally has this thick fibrous membrane around it that the human body can't digest. So if you consume something, if you consume chlorella that doesn't have that broken cell wall, it's just going to go right through you. It's going to be a complete waste of money. So you got to absolutely have that broken cell wall. And they used to not have that, but now pretty much everything you find, you're going to see something that says broken cell wall. And again, you're going to want to look for, just like everything, certified organic. And since we're kind of going through the new year, and if you guys all look at your handout, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Because quite honestly, one of the questions I get mostly is, I can't afford all organic produce. Like, who can afford all of this? And it's a struggle sometimes because it's very expensive. So the Dirty Dozen, the EPA does a report each year, and they test out different foods, and they're looking for the highest amount of pesticide residues. The Dirty Dozen absolutely has the highest amount of pesticides, so it's very, very important to choose organic on these foods listed above. The worst food ever is apples, because 99% of them had more than 2 different species of pesticides, over 99%. And also, when you're looking at this, potatoes were the most pesticides by weight. So all of those, make sure you buy organic. And then we're going to segue off to the Clean 15. These ones, if we're kind of on a budget, I probably would recommend going organic all the way if you had the funds to do so. But if you can't, it's not very essential to have organic Clean 15 foods. For instance, avocados were literally the cleanest foods. And a lot of times you can just look at the thick skin. The thicker the skin around a substance, usually the more protection it has from pesticides, such as bananas and avocados. But avocados are the cleanest, and also pineapples. That's good. I eat a lot of pineapple. But you don't absolutely have to have all of these being organic. You can afford to have these being in organic form. But always, I think one of the most important things is to go to a local farmer's market and get your substances there. I think local might even be a more important factor than organic. I'd way rather have a local piece of produce than something that's organic from China. So, because over the traveling process, we're better off consuming things more to our native lands. And a side note here, because who doesn't like green leafy vegetables? Those were also shown to have a ton of pesticide residues. They didn't quite fit the Dirty Dozen. They never add more foods than a dozen foods to their yearly Dirty Dozen foods. So this would have definitely been, number 13 and 14, your hot peppers and green leafy vegetables. I would also recommend going organic with those. And then the reason why we're talking about this is because there's really no more dispute on how dangerous pesticides are to the body. They're potent neurotoxins. A neurotoxin is something that poisons your nerves, poisons your brain. And there's been tons of studies on negative effects on your brain development from pesticide use. But they even just did a study out in the University of Washington and showed that pregnant mothers who consumed organophosphate herbicides and pesticides, they tested it out, they looked at their offspring, and their offspring had lower IQ, they had brain damage, they had poor cognitive, functioning. So literally it destroys the brain. So I mean, if it's going to destroy your child's brain, imagine what it's doing to your own brain. Okay, and obviously it makes no sense. If it destroys your brain, clearly it's going to destroy your baby's brain because you're sharing everything with the baby. It's called a placenta. Okay, so you have to do it. No pesticides. Yeah.
So would that be connected with autism?
It could be.
Very possible.
It could be. It definitely could be. I think autism is one of those subjects it's very multi-causal in nature. But I think anything that's going to negatively affect brain development, I think that's obvious. Anything where you're putting neurotoxins in the body, and if you know something's a neurotoxin, why the heck would you ever ingest it, is my question. If it's already known to be a neurotoxin that destroys your nerves, who would ever in the right mind put that in their bloodstream and in their body?
Yeah.
I don't know. So these are just good ways to get healthy this year. And so, I mean, if you're looking out and just do some easy things to just abide by for the new year, check out these superfoods. You know, do the chlorella, the spirulina. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon even. Just look for that organic symbol and try not to get things imported from China. And the reason why I say that is because China has a ton of pollution. And you can have these, and since you're making these things from their waters and stuff, you can have an organic substance from China, but absolutely be awful product. Because it can have all these pollutants in there, but they don't test for that. And they can still get that organic symbol. So I would avoid that.
Do these two things grow in the sea?
Spirulina, spirulina is a freshwater. Okay. Chlorella is a saltwater.
Okay.
Yep, but they're both single-celled blue-green algae, yes.
How do you adapt all this into your life?
Well, I basically have, definitely with the top 7 superfoods now, I definitely have each one of these. I keep that in my fridge. I don't take each one every day. I mix and match on the daily. If I added every single thing to my smoothies, that would just be one nasty smoothie. I mean, and I like to semi-enjoy my smoothies. I mean, semi, you know, because, you know, when I work out at lunch, that I have my protein, like my big shake, the first thing, and I'm adding everything to it, you know. On a daily basis, what I'll really add almost every time would be maca, coconut oil, cacao with the magnesium, and that's very important if you're working out, getting those beneficial minerals in there. And then I do consume chlorella quite a bit because that's just I have it in the tablet form, and I just keep that sealed in the fridge, so I can just grab those in the morning. So that's easy to do. In regards to like bee pollen, I feel like that's more seasonal and it's hard to find for me. So I do that when I can. You know, when Mother sells a fresh batch or something like that. I try not to buy the bee pollen stuff online because I just don't think that. I think in regards to bee pollen, I think it's important to have that local.
Right.
You know, I think bees far away are completely different than here. So, yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I Vitamix the crap out of everything. Okay, I take that everywhere. So the Vitamix is my best friend, and I'll blend anything.
I'm filling our blender that we have here. It just cannot do with the Vitamix.
You have a 7-year warranty on your Vitamix.
I know.
Okay, I had it for 5 years, beat the hell out of it, took it back, they gave me a brand new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's worth it.
What supplements do you recommend?
Supplements, yeah, I would recommend a good iodine supplement, especially one that's probably imported from England. And if we sell like a Lugol's iodine, you got to have a mineral supplement. I would encourage something from a fresh sea vegetable source. Especially this year, you got to have vitamin D3 and vitamin C. You know, everyone's talking about this flu symptom. We don't have a freaking flu season. It's called a vitamin D deficiency season. So even in the mid-afternoon here, if your shadow is longer than your height of your body, you're not absorbing vitamin D3. So it's absolutely vital. And so those for sure. I'm sure there's more on the top of my head that I'm not thinking of, but you're going to kind of have the, oh yeah, definitely an omega-3 supplement for sure. And we have it listed there. We have a nutrition handout if you ever want one. I can give that to you. But those are going to be things that everyone should be taking daily.
And the body balance?
That's the mineral supplement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got trace minerals.
It's got the trace minerals. You know, it's good from the sea vegetables.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you incorporate this.